Welcome back. Today I would like to introduce to you a movie titled Cargo. This film is more of a drama than a thriller. It succeeds in conveying a beautiful message about father and son, family affection, as well as portraying an insecure society. This is a zombie-themed movie that revolves around the journey of an infected father trying to protect his newborn daughter to safety. Let's watch the movie together. The film's setting takes place in Australia. A pandemic happened that turned most people into zombies. The lucky ones who survived sought shelter, including Andy's family. They live on a boat floating on the river. One day Andy discovered a family living by the river. He happily waved to them but responded with a rather cold attitude. The man quickly held out the gun with a threatening implication and did not want to interact with Andy. Andy turned to leave. That night Andy and his wife Kay got into an argument. Since the food on the boat was exhausted, Kay decided that they needed to go inland to find food for their young daughter Rosie. While Andy thinks this is too dangerous. The next day while walking along the river Andy discovered the wreck of a boat in the distance. He rowed a boat to the place and climbed inside, where Andy found plenty of food and a bottle of wine. Suddenly he heard the sound of flies and music playing inside the cupboard. Feeling unsafe Andy quickly left. When he returned to the boat and showed off his feet to Kay, the two were extremely happy that they temporarily overcame the crisis of lack of food. Although life was difficult, Kay still created her own joy. She made a wind chime from shells. Then Kay opened the box and discovered a bottle of wine. It turned out to be a gift that Andy had hidden to surprise Kay. Suddenly Kay looked at the shipwreck over there. She then went inside to explore. Looks like Kay is still hoping to find something more. But while searching, she heard a strange noise. Kay hurriedly left the place, but just as she climbed up, she was pulled back by something. Andy was also awakened by the cry of little Rosie. He carried Rosie and discovered a trail of blood on the floor. When he opened the bathroom door, Andy saw Kay trying to stop the bleeding in her leg. Kay has been bitten on the thigh by a zombie, which means that Kay has only 48 hours left to transform into a zombie. Andy then convinces Kay to go ashore to find a hospital, hoping, though slim, that it's better than staying on a boat and waiting to die. Their family then moved inland. On the way they found a car. While Andy was refueling, a zombie appeared. Kay saw it and signaled the light to let him know, so he escaped. They quickly drove the car away from here. Andy stopped the car to check the map. Kay changed baby Rosie's diaper, but when Andy looked up and didn't see Kay, he rushed to the car and saw that Kay had fallen. She fell to the ground, her mouth full of blood. Andy could only hug Kay, a hopeless expression on his face. Then they continued to move. The car was running at high speed when a zombie appeared in front of them. Andy avoided the zombie, so the car crashed into a tree. The stab was so strong that all three were stunned. When Andy regained consciousness, Kay had transformed into a zombie. In an effort to save Rosie, Andy was bitten on the arm by Kay. Andy then saved Rosie and returned to finish his wife. Andy sat down with a blank face as if wanting to give up everything. But thinking about Rosie, he tries to regain his composure, then carries Rosie on his back and continues forward. Then he encountered a zombie. But an Aboriginal girl named Toomey ran out and stopped Andy because this zombie was Toomey's father. Then she led her father elsewhere. When the sun started to come down, Andy found a small village. Went inside. He met a woman named Etta. She bandaged Andy's wound. Through the conversation Andy learns that Etta was originally a teacher, but her students are mostly Aboriginal people who have left. She also advised Andy to go back to sleep and wait until tomorrow morning. Andy then goes to the bathroom and begins to hallucinate. He falls to the floor and passes out shortly after. The next morning Andy wakes up and looks at the clock because there are only 32 hours left before he will turn into a zombie. When Andy was about to leave, Etta showed him a picture, saying that little Toomey and the others could take care of Rosie. Andy quickly said goodbye to Etta and set off on his way. But Andy went on and still couldn't see anyone but corpses. A few hours later Andy spotted a pickup truck. The owner of this is Vic. He seems to be stuck under a hole. Before the two could say hello, Vic opened fire and killed a zombie standing behind Andy. The gunfire also attracted other zombies, causing them to come one after another. Vic gives Andy the car keys and asks Andy to pull the thing that's on top of his leg. Vic and Andy then got in the car and left. They returned to Vic's base, which had a very solid iron fence. Vic lives with a woman named Lorraine. Andy sees something unusual about both of them. Vic then takes Andy to a cage used to attract zombies. Surprisingly, Vic locked the survivors to attract zombies. The two used their rifles to aim from afar and destroy them all, but when he approached Andy to find that the person sitting in the cage was the little girl Toomey, which made him feel unhappy. But Vic convinces that if you don't kill the zombies, one day the zombies will attack again. Lorraine is now taking care of Rosie. But she soon discovers a sticky fluid in Rosie's body. That night Andy felt desperate and went out with the intention of committing suicide, while he was sad when Lorraine appeared, carrying Royce in his arms. Turns out Lorraine knew Andy was bitten by a zombie. She also reveals that Vic is not her husband. He actually killed Lorraine's husband and forced her to come here. It wouldn't be safe to leave Rose here. The two were talking when suddenly Vic appeared. When Andy woke up, he found himself locked in a cage, next to the little girl Toomey. Andy apologizes to Toomey about the afternoon and convinces her to work together to get them both out of here. The zombies that smelled the blood also started coming. Andy figured out a way to escape, was to tie the organ to the door zipper and throw it away. Zombies when fighting for food will pull the door up. Thanks to that Andy and Toomey were able to escape. They immediately returned to Vic's base. Andy sneaks inside and wakes Lorraine, then takes Royce and runs away. But when they were a few steps away, they were discovered. Vic raised his gun and fired one shot, causing the bullet to hit Lorraine. Andy and Toomey had no choice but to run away. They hid in a rock, but Vic caught up. He shined the lights of the car and repeatedly cursed threateningly. Andy tried to cover Rosie's mouth to not make a sound. Vic finally got in the car and left. Next morning Andy convinces Toomey to go with him to the riverbank. He says that there is a family living there. Toomey and Rosie can live with them. Toomey tells Andy to wait a moment and then runs to a tree to find his zombie father. She temporarily left her father here to avoid being hunted, but because Toomey was captured by Vic, her father had no one to take care of and died here. Toomey was very sad, seeing this scene. Andy also appeared and comforted Toomey. The three then continued to walk towards the river, but when they rode to the other family's place, they discovered that the place seemed to have been attacked by zombies. The man begged Andy to kill them with a gun. But Andy refused and turned away. A few seconds later this man committed suicide with his wife and children. The sound of gunfire made Andy look up sadly. Andy then takes the gun and considers suicide, but when he looks at Rosie he resolves to get Rosie to safety. Only a few more hours and Andy will become a zombie. Toomey now convinces Andy to go find the Aboriginal people with her. They go through a train tunnel full of zombies in it. Toomey tells Andy the zombies are resting so they won't attack humans. As they were about to exit the tunnel, they found Vic standing there. The two panicked and hid. Andy pretended to be zombie and stood close to the wall. When Vic went to check, Andy took the opportunity to shoot him in the body. The two continue to wrestle in the tunnel, but because Andy is now weak, Andy is quickly defeated. Vic went to where Toomey was hiding and beat her to faint and then carried Rosie away. But because he was hit by a bullet, Vic also collapsed. Andy thus regains Rosie. He takes Toomey away and tries to talk to keep Toomey awake. After a while of moving Andy collapsed because he couldn't take it anymore. Looks like he's about to turn into a zombie. When he saw the pile of organs on the side of the road Andy wanted to go over and eat them. Andy tied his own hands, stuffed cloth in his mouth and hung a piece of meat from the branch in front of him. The two continued to move and finally reached the place of the Aborigines. Andy is no longer human now, but he successfully managed to get Rosie and Toomey to safety. The Aboriginal people then released Andy to paradise. At the end of the film Rosie is taken care of by the Aboriginal people. On her belly is a thank you letter. Perhaps this is what Andy wants to say before turning into a zombie. He finally fulfills his wish to bring Rosie to safety. At this point, the movie has also ended. If you find it interesting, don't forget to like, share the video and subscribe to support me. Remember to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next videos. Thank you, goodbye and see you again.